Have you ever looked at your life and quietly wondered, whose life am I really living? You go to work, you smile at people, you say the right things, you check all the boxes, and yet something deep inside feels off. It's like you're following a script, one you never actually wrote. Maybe it was handed to you by your parents. Maybe it came from teachers, friends, or even social media. But the truth is, the more you follow it, the more you lose a sense of who you really are. Carl Jung believed that this unsettling feeling, the silent scream inside, is not a coincidence. It's a warning sign. It's the psyche telling you. You've gone too far from yourself. From a young age, we're conditioned to adapt. Be a good boy. Don't speak too loudly. Hide your anger. Act like a lady. Over time, we learn to play roles. We create what Jung called the persona, a social mask we wear to be accepted by others. But here's the danger. When we wear that mask for too long, we forget we ever had a face underneath it. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when your soul screamed no? How often have you laughed politely while dying inside? That's the persona at work. Helpful in society, yes, but harmful when it becomes your entire identity. This disconnect creates a kind of quiet suffering. You may appear successful, even happy on the outside, but inside there's an emptiness you can't explain. And no promotion, no relationship, no achievement can fill that void, because the void is shaped like you. The real you that got buried under years of expectation and conformity. So what's the solution? Jung's answer was bold: individuation, the journey of returning to your true self. And the first step is to admit that maybe, just maybe, the life you're living isn't truly yours. This isn't about blaming others, your parents, your culture, your teachers. They all did what they thought was right. But now it's your turn to ask, what do I believe? What do I want? Who am I beneath the mask? Because here's the truth. You weren't born to be a copy of someone else's expectations. You were born to become whole. And that journey starts with one simple, terrifying, liberating question. Is this life really mine? If this resonates with you, stay with us, because the next part of this journey will help you uncover the hidden parts of yourself that are waiting to come back to life. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever acted like someone you're not, just to be accepted? Of course you have. We all have. It's almost automatic. We act one way at work, another way with friends, and a completely different way when we're alone. Carl Jung had a name for this mask we wear. He called it the persona. It's the version of ourselves that we construct to survive in society, to belong, to be liked. And in many ways, it works. The persona helps us function, adapt, and communicate. But here's the hidden cost. The more we rely on it, the more we lose touch with who we really are. From childhood, we're trained to wear this mask. We're told not to cry, not to be angry, not to stand out too much. So we learn to suppress. We smile when we don't want to. We say yes when everything inside us wants to say no. Over time, the persona becomes so polished, so convincing that even we start to believe it's who we are. But it's not. The persona is a role. It's a character you play. And while it may win approval and help you blend in, it cannot give you true fulfillment. It's like living in a costume, comfortable at first, but suffocating over time. And here's the real danger. If you identify too strongly with the persona, you forget that it's just a mask. You begin to believe that your worth depends on how well you perform for others. That your value lies in being agreeable, charming, competent, never angry, never flawed, never too much. But deep down, a question begins to rise. What if this isn't me? Because it isn't. The real you, the authentic you, is still there, buried beneath the layers of performance and pretense. So how do you know if you're stuck in the persona? Ask yourself, how often do I hide what I really feel? How often do I shrink myself just to keep the peace? How often do I say what others want to hear instead of what I truly think? If your answer is often, then it's time to pause, not to blame yourself, but to become aware. Because awareness is the first step toward freedom. Jung warned us, living only through the persona leads to an empty life. You may gain the world's approval, but lose your soul in the process. So today we challenge you. Begin noticing your mask. When does it appear? Who brings it out? And most importantly, what are you protecting underneath it? Because once you see the persona for what it is, you gain the power to take it off. Let's talk about the part of you that no one sees. Not because it doesn't exist, but because you've been taught to hide it. Carl Jung called this hidden side of your personality the shadow. And no, it's not evil. It's not something to fear. The shadow is simply everything you've rejected, denied, or suppressed, often without even realizing it. Think about this. Have you ever lashed out in anger, then wondered, where did that come from? Felt jealousy and instantly tried to push it away? Reacted too strongly to someone's criticism and didn't understand why? That's your shadow speaking, and it's been with you your whole life. From a young age, we're taught what's acceptable. Maybe you were told that being curious made you annoying, so you stopped asking questions. Maybe you were shamed for crying, so you learned to hide your emotions. Or maybe you felt anger but were punished for expressing it, so you buried it deep. But here's the thing. Nothing we repress ever truly disappears. It just goes underground, into the unconscious, where it grows stronger. And eventually it leaks out through self-sabotage, through emotional outbursts, through behaviors we can't quite explain. Most people fear the shadow. They run from it. But Jung said something radical. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. Because inside the shadow isn't just pain. It's power, your creativity, your passion, your honesty, your authenticity. All the parts of you that didn't fit the mold, but are still part of who you truly are. So how do you begin to work with your shadow? Step 1. Notice your triggers. When something or someone gets under your skin, pay attention. Often what we judge in others is a reflection of what we've rejected in ourselves. Step 2. Stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. Jealousy, anger, fear, they're not signs of weakness, they're signals. They tell you something important is happening inside. And step 3. Approach your shadow with curiosity, not shame. Ask, what part of me have I been ignoring? What have I been too afraid to feel? Because when you stop fighting your shadow, you begin to integrate it. And integration is how you become whole. Here's the truth. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be positive all the time. You just have to be real. And being real means honoring all of who you are, not just the parts that are easy to love. So next time the shadow rises, don't run. Listen, because what you've been avoiding might just be the key to your transformation. What if the version of you that the world sees isn't the real you? What if behind the roles, the routines, and the expectation, there's a deeper self quietly waiting to be discovered? Carl Jung believed that the ultimate purpose of life isn't to be successful by society's standards. It's to become whole. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. And to do that, we must begin a journey he called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Let's break that down. You are not just the face you show to others. You are not just your job title, your personality type, or your past. Within you is something far greater, what Jung called the self. It is the center of your being, the truest, most authentic version of you. Not the mask you wear, not the shadow you hide, but the integration of everything. And here's the truth. The self doesn't just show up one day. You have to go find it. That means facing the uncomfortable parts of yourself, questioning the beliefs you inherited, letting go of identities that no longer serve you. It means looking inward, even when it's scary, because the only way out is in. Why is this so difficult? Because we're afraid of who we might be without our masks. Afraid that if we let go of who we've pretended to be, there will be nothing left. But that's the illusion. Jung warned that many people go their entire lives clinging to a false identity, a persona, while the deeper self remains untouched. And the cost? A life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. But when you begin the process of individuation, something changes. You stop seeking validation from the outside and start listening to the quiet voice within. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and begin asking, "What feels true to me?" And for the first time, you experience a sense of freedom, not because life gets easier, but because you become more honest. Individuation is not a weekend retreat. It's a lifetime practice. It's messy, it's humbling, and sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart, but really, it's falling into place. So here's the question. Are you living a life that's yours? Or are you just playing a role in someone else's script? You don't have to have all the answers today, but if you feel the pull, that quiet whisper calling you inward, then you're already on the path. Because the journey to the self doesn't begin with a map. It begins with a moment of truth. Have you ever wondered why some stories speak to your soul, even if you've never lived them? Why tales of heroes, mentors, rebels, and lost wanderers seem to echo something deep inside you? Carl Jung had an answer. He believed that beneath your personal experiences, there's a deeper layer of the mind, a place he called the collective unconscious. It's not shaped by your memories, your upbringing, or even your culture. It's older, universal, inherited. And from it arise powerful forces that guide how we think, feel, and behave. These forces are called archetypes. Archetypes are the timeless patterns that show up in myths, movies, religions, and in you. They are the blueprints of human experience. You've met them before. The hero who rises against all odds, the wise one who sees beyond illusion, the caregiver who sacrifices for others, the rebel who dares to question the system. But here's the twist. You're not just watching these characters. You're living them. Maybe you've been the hero trying to prove your strength, or the caregiver always putting others first, or the outcast quietly carrying pain. These archetypes don't just exist in stories. They shape your story, and most of the time they do it without your awareness. That's where the problem begins. When you unconsciously identify with just one archetype, you limit yourself. The hero burns out trying to save everyone. The caregiver forgets their own needs. The rebel destroys what they love in the name of freedom. But when you recognize these patterns, when you name the archetypes at work, something incredible happens. You take back control. So how do these archetypes appear in your life? Start by looking at your dreams, your instincts, your emotional patterns. That recurring feeling of, why does this always happen to me? That's not random. It's the echo of an archetype playing out again and again, waiting to be understood. And once you become conscious of it, you can start to balance it. You don't have to abandon the hero, just give it rest. You don't have to silence the caregiver, just include yourself in that care. You don't have to fight the rebel, just direct its fire toward truth, not destruction. Jung taught that individuation, the journey to becoming whole, requires you to meet these inner characters. Not to destroy them, but to integrate them. To let all parts of you have a seat at the table. So if you've ever felt like you're being pulled in different directions, maybe you are. The key is not to silence the voices inside, but to listen and learn which ones are guiding you toward your true self. What happens when you spend your whole life running from yourself? When you ignore the quiet voice inside that says, "This isn't who I really am." Carl Jung had a name for that path, non-individuation. And he warned, it always comes with a cost. On the surface, everything might look fine. You've got the job, the house, the social life. You follow the rules, meet expectations, and stay in line. But under that calm surface, something starts to break. A quiet frustration, a creeping emptiness, a sense that no matter what you achieve, something essential is missing. And that something is you. Jung believed that when we avoid the journey of individuation, the path to discovering our true self, we don't just miss out on fulfillment, we begin to suffer, not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it shows up as anxiety that won't go away, or a string of failed relationships that all feel eerily similar, or a career that looks good on paper but drains your soul. Other times it's physical. The body starts to carry the burden. Fatigue, illness, tension, all symptoms of a deeper disconnect between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And perhaps most dangerously, this avoidance leads to a life lived on autopilot. You repeat the same mistakes, attract the same types of people, stay stuck in the same patterns, not because you want to, but because you haven't paused long enough to ask, why? This is the shadow side of non-individuation. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because one day you wake up and realize, I've been living a life I never chose. And when that truth hits, it can either break you or wake you. Here's the good news. Your soul is always trying to reach you. Through discomfort, through restlessness, through that quiet feeling that says there has to be more than this. But if you keep silencing it, if you keep prioritizing approval over authenticity, the result is predictable. Resentment. You'll blame others, your job, society, the system, or worse, you'll turn it inward into shame, depression, and self-doubt. But it doesn't have to end that way. You don't have to stay trapped in a version of yourself that doesn't feel real. You don't have to numb your pain just to make it through the week. You can choose a different path, one that starts with the courage to ask, who am I really? Because the cost of ignoring that question is high. But the reward for answering it is freedom. Let's be honest, becoming your true self is not a comfortable journey. It's not about feeling good all the time or finding some magical formula for happiness. It's about facing the truth. And truth often hurts before it heals. Carl Jung said that the path to wholeness, to becoming your real undivided self, requires one essential thing: courage. Not the kind of courage that charges into battle, but the kind that sits quietly and says, I'm ready to see myself, all of me. Because let's face it, most people don't want to do that. It's easier to stay inside the role, to keep wearing the mask, to follow the script that's been handed to us, even if it doesn't fit. Why? Because the truth is disruptive. It asks uncomfortable questions. What if I'm not who I thought I was? What if the life I built isn't really mine? What if I've been hiding from parts of myself for years? These are not questions for the faint of heart. They're for those who are tired of pretending, tired of shrinking, tired of feeling like something essential is missing, and finally ready to do something about it. The process of transformation begins the moment you stop running. You stop blaming the world, your past, your circumstances, and start looking inward. And what you find there might shake you, but it will also free you. You'll realize that you no longer need to perform for anyone. You no longer need to be liked by everyone. You no longer need to chase validation or fit into someone else's idea of success. Because the more you step into your truth, the more powerful you become. Not powerful in a loud, ego-driven way, but powerful in your presence, in your peace, in your ability to stand in the storm and say, I know who I am. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to become what others want, you become exactly who you were meant to be. That's the gift of individuation. It's not a destination, it's a transformation, one that unfolds over a lifetime, but it starts with one decision, the decision to be real. So if something inside you is stirring right now, if you feel that quiet pull toward authenticity, that's not random, that's yourself calling you home. The question is, will you answer? There comes a quiet moment in life when we begin to wonder, have I spent too long trying to be who others wanted me to be? Carl Jung called this the cost of living behind a mask, the persona, a version of ourselves we create to be accepted, while slowly drifting away from who we truly are. The deeper message here is simple yet profound. True peace doesn't come from external approval, but from inner alignment. For those in the later stages of life, when the noise of ambition has quieted, this is a sacred opportunity to turn inward, to heal, to reclaim, and to rediscover. It is a chance to face the parts of ourselves we once hid and begin the lifelong process Jung called individuation, becoming whole. You no longer have to perform. You no longer have to meet anyone's expectations. Now is the time to live honestly, softly, and fully for yourself. And the most powerful truth of all, it's never too late to become who you truly are. Even in the twilight of life, the path to inner freedom still awaits. And it begins with one step, the courage to be real.